What's up, guys? Murphy back at you. So, should you buy a Sig P320? That's the question. So let me go through this real quick and kind of what my issues are with the whole thing. So before we get into any of the DA or AD, not DA issues, let's talk about the gun itself real quick and my initial issues with it. So I have a Sig 320 X5 here and the old Glock 17 Gen 3. So when Sig first came out with the 320, I was kind of excited. I was an old school kind of Sig guy. I had, I've shot and owned P226s, P220s, you name it. I like the older model Sigs a lot. And so I was like, oh, cool. They came out with a polymer striker fired gun. That's neat. So I went to the gun shop a few months after they had come out and tested one. Picked it up, handled it, felt the trigger, all that kind of stuff. And my first initial impressions were, oh, this isn't good. This is not good. This is an unsafe gun. That was my initial impression. And the reason I felt that way was because of the trigger. So on the Sig, what Sig decided to do was to not put any type of safety on the trigger and just have a plain, steel trigger. Now, both these guns obviously are safety checked and all that shit, but there's nothing stopping this. Another thing is the weight of the trigger was too light. Now, this is a larger overall problem, which is why I'm making this video. Not just with the 320. This is a larger overall problem in the gun world, in the 2A community, shooting community, whatever. This push for lighter, shorter triggers. This is a big thing. It's all over the place. Oh, we need lighter triggers. We need better triggers. We need crisper triggers. We need all this kind of stuff. And so the gun community has been pushing for that. So Sig is kind of a product, honestly, of the zeitgeist going on in the gun world with this push to lighter triggers, which is an overall problem. It's not a correct way of thinking about service weapons, concealed carry guns. I'll make a video later, probably on triggers, and go through all the reasons why you don't need a light trigger in your gun and why that's dangerous and you shouldn't do that. But for right now, we'll just focus on this. And so Sig said, hey, you know what? Gun culture, you want this super light, nice trigger, we'll give you that. We'll make the Sig 320 and we'll put this super light trigger in it. We'll get rid of the trigger shoe safety and all that and just give you a super nice shooting gun. And so that's one of the reasons they made the 320 the way it is. But when I first picked one up and felt it in the gun shop, dry fired it a couple times, whatever, I was like, oh, this is not good. This is going to lead to ADs. 100% this is going to lead to accidental discharges. And that's because of the trigger. So let's talk about the philosophy real quick and where this kind of comes from. So gun companies make handguns, especially combat handguns, like the Glock. We'll just use the Glock as an example because everyone is familiar with it, right? Everyone knows the Glock. So it's a good example to use. Question: do you really think that Glock cannot make a gun that has an 1/8 of an inch trigger and a 2-pound trigger weight? Do you really think that Smith & Wesson can't do that? Or that the HK can't do that? No, they can. They can do it. These gun manufacturers can do it. They can put the engineering in it and do that stuff. The reason that they don't is because of the human factor. Those guns would be unsafe to carry and use in any kind of service weapon capacity or concealed carry capacity, because we are human beings and human beings make mistakes. I don't give a shit how well trained you are. It doesn't matter. You're still a person and you will still make mistakes. And especially when you get stressed, when you get in a hyper stressful state, like in a shooting, when you have another human being trying to kill you, mistakes are much more likely to occur. People have shot themselves on accident in gunfights, okay? And that doesn't happen as rarely as you may think. The best combat shooters in the world make mistakes. It's not broadly known, but for reasons, but in the special forces, in the special ops community, they'll lose at least one guy a year to a training accident. Not saying firearm specific training accident, but a training accident. Okay? At least one soldier a year will die from a training accident in special forces, and these guys are the best. They're special forces. They're the best guys. So if the best can make mistakes in training, we all can make mistakes because we are human beings. We're not robots. And it doesn't matter how well trained you are. So gun companies make triggers on their guns with that in mind. This is why the Glock has a 1/2 inch trigger pull and a 5.5 to 6.5 in that range pound trigger. That's why. It's not because they can't do better. It's because these are made for human beings, and human beings can make mistakes. They can accidentally put their finger on the trigger. They can accidentally put too much pressure on the trigger, more than they intend. There's all kinds of mistakes that you can and will make when you're under high stress. So to have some tiny little 2-pound trigger with a little 1/8 of an inch trigger pull is dangerous. So you don't do that. This used to be common knowledge back when I started, is you didn't mess with the triggers of your guns. You just learned to shoot them the way they were, right? And so this goes back to the modern culture of guys trying to buy skill. I want to buy skill, so I want the super light, nice trigger. That'll help me shoot better. First of all, no, it won't. But that's a video for later. But Sig said, okay, we got you. We got you, fam. We will make a super light, nice trigger. We'll get rid of the trigger safety, and it'll just be great. And the first time, like I said, I dry fired one, I said to myself, oh, this is not good. This gun is going to AD. We are going to have ADs with this gun. And fast forward several years, I was 100% right. We are having ADs with these guns all over the place that we're not having with other platforms. Every gun can AD. When Glocks first became popular in law enforcement, there were some ADs with Glocks. And that was due to police officers transitioning from double action revolvers to Glocks. And so a lot of times with double action revolvers, some of the old school guys, they wouldn't put them in holsters. They would put them in a pocket or stick them in a waistband. And they could get away with that because it's a double action only revolver. Heavy, long trigger pull every single time. So they could get away with that. But then when law enforcement transitioned to Glocks, much a lighter trigger, shorter, all that, they couldn't get away with that anymore. So, there was a sheriff who shot himself in the ass in the Walmart parking lot because he stuck his Glock in the back of his waistband, no holster. So that's not a gun problem. That's a training problem, obviously. But you don't hear nowadays of those things happening very much. Once in a while, rarely you will hear about an AD. And when you do, it's always that person's fault because they did something bad. Every great once in a while, it will be a fault of the gun because most of the time someone monkeyed around with the internals and caused a safety issue, a mechanical safety issue. With the SIG, we're seeing that much more often. Now, some of the ADs happening with SIGs are user error, right? Fingers going on the triggers or something like that. Some of the ADs we're seeing with SIGs are mechanical failures. But regardless, I'll get to the mechanical failures here in a second. But this trigger is not suitable for carry use, in my opinion. Why did SIG go with this? Well, I've already explained why SIG went with a trigger that has no safety on it. And you can say all you want that the Glock trigger little dongle here is just kind of stupid, ridiculous lawyer crap. And there may be some validity to that, but there's also the validity of this thing works, right? I'm pulling the trigger. It's not going back. Why? Because my finger isn't all the way on the trigger to pressing that little dongle. Now, it's still not working. Kind of barely, because my finger's a little bit more on the trigger, right? I'm going to inch up. Now it works. If you pull up high, up top, and don't hit the dongle, it's not going to work, right? So it is a safety, and it does work. There's nothing like that on this. Now ask yourself this other question. Why is SIG the only one that does that? If you look at a Smith & Wesson M&P, it has a articulating trigger that works kind of the same as the Glock. If you look at a Springfield XD, it has a little dongle. If you look at the HKVP9, it has a little dongle thing. They all have trigger safeties. The SIG does not. Why? Right? Safety problem. So anything hits this, it's going boom. Anything. A string from your jacket, anything. You accidentally reholster with your finger down on the trigger like that, and your finger barely hits the side of this trigger and pulls it, boom, it goes off. Now I'm going to put my finger exactly on the same place on this Glock trigger, kind of to the side here, and try to pull. Nope, doesn't go off because there's no trigger safety on this. So there's a reason that all the other gun companies put that trigger safety on there. They kind of copied Glock and they put the trigger safety on. There's a reason. Safety. Where the SIG doesn't have that. That's my first problem with the 320s. And that problem I saw instantly when I very first picked one up at the gun shop. I was excited about the 320s. I was like, man, this is going to be cool. SIG made a striker fired gun. Awesome. I like SIGs. I'm down. And then when I felt the trigger and saw that it had no safety anywhere, I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is going to lead to problems. And lo and behold, several years down the line, we have problems. So if you just take the unintentional firing out of it, the mechanical problems with the 320, if you just take that away, I still would say don't carry a 320. That is my opinion. Carry something like a Smith & Wesson M&P or a Glock or something that is a more safe gun for carry. Because, as I said, it doesn't matter how well trained you are. And I know someone's going to drop a comment. It's like, well, if you're properly trained. No, that's not true. It doesn't matter how well trained you are still a human being, and human beings make mistakes. If the best shooters in the world, tier 1 tactical units, make mistakes, so can you. Okay? So don't give me the whole if you're well trained crap, because that's not true. Okay? Training does not overcome everything. I wish it did. That'd be super cool if you could overcome everything with training. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it works because we're people, we're humans. So even if you take away the mechanical issues with the gun, I still would say steer clear of the 320. Buy something safer. Okay? Now, let's get on to addressing the mechanical issues with the gun. I've heard some people say, most famously the GBRS group, whatever, guys, say, well, unless I see somebody, crisscrossed applesauce arms and the gun goes off in the holster, then I'm not going to believe it. Well, that has happened. That has happened several times. Okay, 2 law enforcement guns. So you know they haven't been monkeyed around with, because any agency that issues guns is going to have a policy saying you can't mess with it. So that has happened. I've seen 2 videos just in the last couple of weeks where the gun was in the holster, nothing touched it, nothing was moving, static stuff, boom, in the holster. So that is happening. That is an absolute fact. And those are just the few that have surfaced online. Knowing LE agencies and knowing how things work, I can tell you there's been many, many more that have not been publicized. Okay? Many, many more. Probably 2 to 3 times more than what you hear about has actually happened. They're just not being put out on social media. So there is some kind of mechanical thing going on with the gun that some number of them are going off on their own. So there are mechanical problems with the gun. Now, something odd is happening with SIG now in the firearms community, and that is all of the defenders of the SIGs are coming out. Everyone's like, oh, da-da-da-da, whatever, whatever. And that's weird. And it's weird because you remember back when the Serpa holsters were a big thing? You know, the Serpa holsters with the mechanism on the side of the holster that you push with your trigger finger to draw the gun out, the old Blackhawk Serpas, right? Remember when all the controversy happened with those and guys banned them from their classes because they led to ADs? Now, that was a similar thing, maybe. Going away from the mechanical issues, going back to simply the trigger. Instructors banned Serpa holsters from their classes. Not because they caused ADs, but because of the design of the holster lent themselves to the shooters accidentally pulling the triggers, because the release was right on the side of the holster. So you would push down on the release like this, draw the gun out, right? And a lot of guys were doing that, drawing the gun out, and the finger was just going boom on the trigger. So guys banned Serpa holsters from classes. And nobody really had a problem with that. They were like, yeah, that equipment, that's not good. Now, again, not talking about the mechanical issues, just talking about the trigger. Guys are like, oh, SIGs are safe, whatever. No, they lend themselves to ADs because there's no safety anywhere. Anything hits this trigger in any kind of way, and the gun's going off. So in my mind, this is very similar to the Blackhawk Serpa holster. Doesn't cause ADs. Well, actually it does. But again, not talking about the mechanical issues, just talking about the function of the gun. Doesn't cause ADs. Absolutely lends itself to ADs because of the trigger. Okay? So that in and of itself is a no-go for me. And by the way, before you ask, this isn't my gun. I didn't buy this. So that right there is a no. And something else is happening that's weird, and people continue to push and sell X320s, and people continue to buy them for some unknown fucking reason. And my question is why? There are a plethora of good options out there. It's not like we have the Sig 320 or you can have a 1911 and that's it. Those are the only options that you have. No, we have options coming out of our ass these days. All kinds of very good, reliable guns with long proven track records. So with all the options that are out there right now, why would you choose to go with the one that has problems? That just doesn't add up in my brain. Why you would do that. Like, I just don't, I can't fathom that. Now, I know the guys who have 320s and love them and all that and never had an issue are going to come out and defend, but I'm also going to tell you, you need to be quiet. And the reason you need to be quiet is because SIG isn't paying you. You have no loyalty to SIG. Okay? Don't defend a piece of equipment when you have no loyalty to it. Okay? Now, I know I've done some videos earlier on Kimber 1911s, and I've just shared my experience with those, and y'all know that. I'm not defending Kimber. I'm just saying these are my experiences. If Kimber turned into a crap company tomorrow, if one of my 1911s broke tomorrow and I had to send it to Kimber for warranty work and Kimber jerked me around and wouldn't fix it or whatever else, I would be done with Kimber. I wouldn't carry them anymore, wouldn't buy them. Because Kimber ain't paying me, right? Nobody's paying me. I don't work for Kimber, right? I have no loyalty to them past they make a good product, in my opinion. I've had good luck with them. But, so the guys coming out with and defending Sig, man, just be quiet. What are you doing? You don't work for Sig. You don't work for Sig. Sig ain't paying you. So why do you give a shit about any of this stuff going on? Why are you getting out here saying, oh, this is crap and defending? No, just no. I don't understand that. And I get that so guys have a tendency, once they get a piece of gear and they use it, to kind of identify with that piece of gear. Every person does this to an extent, and it's stupid. But everyone does it. We're human beings. We do stupid things. I do stupid things. You do stupid things. We all do stupid things. But don't identify with a piece of equipment, okay? Unless Sig is paying you, or you help design the gun, or you work for them or something, it's just a piece of equipment. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. It's just something that you use. So calm down. Don't get wrapped up and get all emotional about this stuff. So that's kind of my advice to Sig guys, man. Just freaking calm down, dude. You have no dog in this fight, really. You don't. If you got paid by Sig, then maybe you would. But so to wrap this all up, I know it's been a long fucking video. Sig 320, yes, no, absolutely not. Never, ever, ever would I ever carry a Sig 320. Even if Sig did the right thing, and the way Sig has handled this problem has really pissed me off because it's so ridiculous. They've blamed holsters, they've blamed all kinds of things. Instead of taking ownership and taking responsibility, they haven't done that. So Sig, in my opinion, crap company. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But even if mechanically Sig did the right thing, took them back, got them all fit, everything was good, I still wouldn't carry one because it's an unsafe gun because of the trigger. That's just my opinion. I've seen too many guys have ADs. I've seen too many people shoot themselves during gunfights. I've seen too much of this stuff to recommend a trigger that's, in my opinion, too light. It's too light, and anything touches it in any place and the gun goes boom. That's just not, that's not right. Unsafe in my opinion. Remember guys, I'm just a freaking dude on the internet. But in my opinion, it's a no across the board for a Sig 320. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your money. You can do whatever the hell you want to. But I would just ask, why would you go with the 320 when there are many other options out there that are tried, true, safe, reliable, good options? Why would you choose to spend your hard-earned money on something that has problems? And at this point, it is very well documented that these have problems. Sig has already lost, I don't know how many lawsuits over this. There's a video of them going off on their own, nothing touching them in the holster. You can't defend that. There is no defense for that. No matter how much cognitive dissonance you have, it's a done deal. So why would you go with a question mark when you could go with a tried, true, proven performer? It doesn't make sense why you would choose to do that. Anyway, that's what I have on the 320s, guys. That's kind of my opinion on it, kind of what I've seen. Hope this helps. Hope you enjoyed the video. Y'all have a good one.